Hello and welcome to the Climbing Arborist podcast. My guest for this podcast is Jamie Merritt. Jamie is most well known for being the inventor, creator, designer of the Akimbo. Jamie talks extensively in this podcast about, how his journey on how he got into tree work, and then how through his arborist career he's always been tinkering and playing with different bits of equipment, trying to improve different pieces of equipment, and then just tinkering himself really, and playing with different devices and trying to improve things, and which eventually turned into him developing his own device. And we talk long and hard about the process involved all the way through developing the Akimbo and where it is today. So thank you very much to Jamie for giving up his time to talk about the Akimbo and everything else that we discuss. So much appreciated, Jamie, and I hope everybody enjoys this podcast. Thanks a lot. This podcast is brought to you by ChipDrop. Now, ChipDrop is an awesome website. I've used ChipDrop on many occasions. It is the website is getchipdrop.com, and what it does exactly what it says on the tin. It is a drop site for your chip. And what ChipDrop does is it gets people that want wood chip, gardeners, community gardens, that kind of thing, homeowners. They all want chip. Tree services make chip and want to get rid of it, and want to get rid of it for as little or no cost to them as possible. And ChipDrop basically can cut out a lot of travel time. So if you have a dump site that you take your wood chip to, even if it's for free, but you have a job and your usual dump site is an hour and a half away, once you factor in traffic, that kind of thing, you can go on ChipDrop and you are presented with a map of your local area on ChipDrop, and it'll bring up all these little tabs, little pinpoints of people that want wood chip, and you just click on the nearest one to wherever you're working, and it'll say, can take 2, 3, 4 loads of wood chip. You can dump them in the back alley, in the driveway, on the boulevard. It'll give you all these kind of different instructions, and you just click to confirm that you're going to drop the wood chip in the next 48 hours, and gives you the address. Go around, drop the wood chip exactly where it says, and voila, you have probably saved yourself, you can save yourself an hour, 2 hours travel time there and back. So convenient, and what a brilliant service. So for some people, like people in Canada, it's completely free. Some places in the US it's free. Some of the bigger cities it'll charge you $20, but sometimes the person that wants a wood chip can actually pay the $20, and then you don't pay anything. So it's so good. I mean, even for $20, if it saves you an hour and a half of travel time to go to the site, it's, that's got to be worth $20 easy. Time is so much more important than that $20. So go to getchipdrop.com if you haven't tried it yet. Just sign up and give it a try once or twice, and you'll be amazed how useful it can be. Maybe it's not useful on a daily basis for you, but when that right job comes along and there's a chip drop site right next to it, you'll be like, thank God for ChipDrop. So go to getchipdrop.com and give it a try today, and you'll be glad. So thank you to ChipDrop for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. This podcast is also sponsored by Jobber. Now, Jobber is a business management software. I use it to run my business, my little tree service company. And the first time I started using Jobber, I was like, oh my God, I've been wasting so much time and energy doing everything the Stone Age old-fashioned way, using Microsoft Excel to send out quotes and all this kind of stuff. And what saves a load of time is all the automated emails that you can send, the templates that you can set up that are already pre-written emails that you can send away. It makes my business look so much more professional. It sends follow-up reminders, so you can you can follow up with people like 4 days after you've sent out a quote, and you don't even have to remember because it's automated, and it just is a bit of a refresher if it's got lost in their inbox, or if it's gone out of their mind, the fact that they were looking to get some tree work done. Those little reminders are awesome, especially the reminders when you haven't been paid, because I'm terrible at chasing down clients that haven't paid, and the fact that they get sent out a reminder after like 30 days or whenever you set the time frame for. And I get so many emails saying, "Oh my God, so sorry I haven't paid. I feel so bad," because they actually think it's me emailing them when really it's just automated. So Jobber Business Software is awesome. The website is GetJobber. And if you go to climbingarborist.com, you'll see there's a banner on the top. If you click on the banner, you can get a free trial, 14-day free trial. And then if you sign up for a subscription, you'll get 20% off your first 6 months if you use the link from the banner on the climbingarborist.com website. Or if you were listening and watching this podcast on YouTube, there'll be a link in the description that you can just click that link to get the offer of 14-day free trial and 20% off your first 6 months subscription. So go try Jobber out. It is absolutely awesome. You get the app that you can do quotes and invoices on. It just makes your life so much easier. So if you run a business and you're not using some kind of business management software, I'm telling you, go and try it, because it is an absolute game changer. So thanks very much to Jobber for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Appreciate you doing the podcast with me anyway, and sorry to do it at a time where it's going to break into your evening a little bit. But
no, it's no problem. We just have a super tiny house, so we have to kind of coordinate who's going to be where. Yeah. They're gonna watch the movie downstairs, my wife and son. So
nice.
We gotta
yeah,
set up going.
Yes, I suppose, like, so I don't know much about you and your background, and obviously the main thing that I know you for, and what the majority of people in the ARB industry know you for, is being the designer, creator, maker of the Akimbo.
Right.
So obviously I'm really interested in just hearing the whole story of that, but do you want to it'd be cool to start with, like, how you started in the industry, how long you've been doing it, where you got your start, and if it was planned or if you just kind of fell into it, and that kind of stuff, really.
Yeah, I think, like, as a kid, I always was a tree climber, like a lot of us were, scaring my mom and getting up crazy tall. We had a lot of redwoods out here in California. My friends had redwoods in their yards, and we had oaks in our yards, really like great trees to climb. And so we'd climb those all the time. And then my grandparents had a little orchard, so I kind of learned how to prune fruit trees as a kid or younger. But I never really knew that tree work was like a thing. Like, I had no idea. So, growing up, my aspirations were to be, some kind of science field animal, reptiles were my thing. Or woodworking is something I got really into. My grandfather had a shop. And after high school, or in high school, I took all the shop classes that I could possibly take. I found out early on that in California, in our school system anyway, taking a foreign language was an elective, but they acted like you had to take it because you have to take it to get into college or to graduate college. So everybody was taking foreign language, and somebody told me you don't have to. So I was like, really? I can take shop classes instead? All right, I'm taking 3 semesters of metal shop, 2 semesters of wood shop. I'm taking the photography class and all that kind of stuff. So I was always really into that kind of realm. And then graduated high school, didn't really know what I wanted to do, went to junior college. I knew I didn't want to like a real college degree because I just don't have the attention span for it. Um, and I have some sort of crippling anxiety over English classes and writing reports and stuff. So I just took as many science courses as I could, science courses and art courses. And a friend of mine convinced me to move up to Humboldt County with him. And we went to the junior college up there is College of the Redwoods is what it's called. And it's an awesome little school because they are tied in with Humboldt State University. So you can take the same class that you would be taking at Humboldt State from the same teacher for, a third of the cost or quarter of the cost. And I found this teacher that I really loved, and I took all of his classes, and they were all biology, oceanography, botany, and then they have a big focus on forestry. I took a bunch of their forestry classes and woodshop classes, and I ended up getting a job. Tell me if this is too long-winded, but
No, this is great.
I ended up getting a job out of the woodshop class. Somebody came in and was like, "Hey, you want a job? I got a cabinet shop." And so I was like, "Yeah, sign me up." And so I went to work for him for 4 years, building custom kitchen cabinets and some furniture, some like lots of built-in stuff, libraries and things for him. So that really like scratched the itch for building stuff and solving problems and getting into figuring out how this is going to fit together and where this is going to go and making stuff look really good on the outside but be functional at the same time. And I'd probably still be doing that if I didn't I ended up going through kind of a bad breakup with my girlfriend at the time and decided to just pick up and leave town. But backing up a second, in the woodworking stuff, me and my friend got into going out and harvesting our own wood and milling our own wood. So I bought this old chainsaw with an old Alaska mill on it, and we'd go out on the weekends and we'd mill wood. And so that kind of taught me to use chainsaws and kind of started, being outdoors a lot with that. And when I moved out of Humboldt, I don't remember how it happened, but I realized I was like, oh, tree companies are a thing. Like, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I like to climb trees. Like, I want to, somebody will pay me for that. Let's do it. And found a guy locally I grew up in Sonoma County, North Bay, California, like the next valley west from Napa Valley of wine country.
Wine country, yeah.
Yeah. And so I found a local guy who hired me, and I worked for him for maybe like a month and a half. And it was the old guy, the old guy, his son, and one ground guy, and me. And so his son was the climber. And I realized really quick that I was never going to learn how to climb working for those guys. He wanted me to learn how to drive a truck. He wanted me to be on the ground, but his son was the climber, and his son was going to take over the business when he retired. And it was never going to be an opportunity for me to do that. So that put the seed in my brain about tree work as an option. And I quit working for him. I did another 3 years doing furniture restoration in a little furniture restoration shop. And then when he retired, I started thinking about tree work again. I found this guy down the street from my mom's house. I don't remember how I heard about him, but he's this like funny hillbilly kind of guy. And it was this weird juxtaposition because Sonoma, there's a lot of money. There's wineries, there's, like Robin Williams, the actor, had a house there. Kirk Hammett from Metallica has got a house up there. John Lasseter lives up there. So here's this guy, his family's owned this 6-acre place forever. And then across the street from him is John Lasseter, the CEO or whatever, the creator of Pixar, like a billionaire. And he's got like, he had this yard full of wood. He ran a little firewood business. He had a yard full of wood. He collected old tractors, like single cylinder tractors. He had these like crazy barns made out of pallets that are like falling down and like just crap everywhere.
Just look like
And
you're a typical kind of like old guy junkyard that's owned a
yeah,
pub.
just a junkyard.
Yeah.
And he was such a funny guy. He collected tractors, he collected SpongeBob memorabilia, and he collected pornography. And so he, but I'm just this kid. I'm like, hey, I want to do tree work. And he's like, well, what knots can you tie? And I was like, oh, I can tie, I didn't even know the names of the knots. I knew knots, but I was like fumbling through it. I'm like, oh, I could do this one. He's like, show me a clove hitch. And I'm like, which one is that? He's like, this one. Oh yeah, I know how to tie that one. All right. He's like, all right, well, you can come work for me. And it was kind of like we do 2 or 3 days of tree work, and then we do 2 or 3 days of firewood splitting. I'd spend 8 hours just splitting firewood and worked for him. Oh, and when he hired me, he said, okay, here's what you need. And he gave me a list of, spikes. You need a weaver saddle. You need the New England safety blue. You need these kind of boots, and gave me kind of like a shopping list. So I went on to Bailey's, which was pretty local to us, and I spent like $800 and bought all the gear, and then from that, I was always just kind of like, well, this saddle sucks. Like, sucks climbing with a Blake's hitch. Like, what else is there? How can I looking? And so I started looking. Bailey's had it just like the Cheryl Tree mag is. They've got the little. Here's a little tip and trick. Here's a little thing you could do. Here's this and that, and just kind of adding on to it. And at some point, I found the Tree Buzz online and the Tree House.
So what year did you was it when you started working for the old guy?
So that was like, so I moved to Santa Cruz in 2005, and so that was 2001, I think, right around 2001, and 2002. I'm terrible with dates, but yeah, I've been doing solid tree work for I think 16 years now, because he was the first one, and ever since starting with him, I've been doing tree work, and I worked for him for maybe a year or year and a half, and then he kind of like, he was more interested in doing the firewood, and he kind of the work he had kind of dried up. He was only having me out there like 1 or 2 days a week.
Right.
And I was like, I'm going to try and find something else. And I found another guy in town who was awesome. And he was putting me in the tree, and he was just like really encouraging and really interested in like working efficiently, I guess, and doing a really good job, because we worked for a lot of people who are, like I said, there's a lot of money in Sonoma County, and there's a lot of these big oak trees, and a lot of people who are willing to pay a good amount of money to have their trees look really nice. So we spent a lot of time, not so much on climbing techniques and stuff, but just pruning techniques and getting these trees to look really perfect and really nice, and just spending the time in these trees to get them really, really nice. And then, so I worked for him for 3 years, and was spending a lot of time on the Treehouse online forum, and not posting anything, but just like lurking on there, reading everything I could get my hands on. And met my soon, future wife at that time. She lived in Humboldt still. Hold on, somebody's, stop it. Somebody's trying to call me. Met my future wife, and how do I stop?
Is it ringing on your computer as well?
I don't even know what's going on. But oh, there we go. So yeah, I met her, and she ended up moving to Santa Cruz to go to school. She's an acupuncturist, and there's a good acupuncture school down here. And I followed her down here and found this company here. And well, I got the phone book and there's like 3 pages of tree companies,
Yeah.
and I applied to all of them. And these guys called me back, and I've been working for them ever since. And they're, it was one of those. It's just like the coworkers are the what like keep
What
me
keep? Yeah.
coming to
Yeah.
work every day at
Totally.
that company,
Yeah.
especially early on, because there were a bunch of guys who were like super enthusiastic. I was really into like learning new things and like, trying out the French Prusik and trying out these different knots. And, it's like my foreman he's the kind of guy, he's like, Jamie, I think I invented a new knot. Check this out. Look at this. Let's try it out. It's like, all right, yeah, let's do it. And then he was also really competitive. So every tree was like, all right, you get in that tree and I'm going to get in this tree and we'll see who's done first. And kind of go as fast as you can. And so that was like a big change from the last company where it was like, take all the time you need, make this tree look awesome. And this was like, okay, make the tree look awesome, but do it fast. Like, get it done. And it was, Nate, my foreman, and then a bunch of other guys. There's always like turnover in tree care.
Yeah.
But it seemed like we just had this string of like really, really great guys that just made it fun to work with, like no matter what we were doing. And those guys were the ones who were, I'm on Tree Buzz every night. I'm on the Tree House and I'm watching Kevin Bingham, showing the progress of the rope wrench, and I'm watching Paul Cox, with the hitchhiker. And it's just like, we're at work, we're like, hey, what if we, try something like that? Like, I can like tinker something together. Like, what if you put this piece of wood in the middle of the knot? And what if you tie it upside down and put a ring in it, and just messing around all the time. And luckily our boss, as long as we got it done, he didn't really care what we were doing, as long as we were getting it done. And so that we just kind of messed around with that stuff for quite a while. And I always liked like building stuff, and I built my own saddle. We built like a bunch of weird, stupid things that didn't ever work. And then I finally bought a hitchhiker because I don't know why I never bought the rope wrench, and I can't remember why. I was either too cheap or something about having it above. And this was before Kevin had realized that the stiff tether was the way to go. It was just a length of cord.
Yeah.
So something about that I didn't really like that idea or something. I can't remember why. But when Paul Cox was starting to sell the hitchhiker, we all bought one, and that got us into climbing SRS and learning how to climb SRS. And it just was like, oh my God, this is like amazing.
So had you been climbing? Had you been using like SRS for access quite a bit, or
not at all? We'd played around with like footlocking a little bit, and I think we went as a group. We went to watch one of the Western chapter climbing competitions. It was in San Francisco that year in Golden Gate Park. And I'm pretty sure it was, who was it? Somebody there was climbing with an SRS ascent setup. And I remember it was basically hand ascenders to go up the rope. And then he had some kind of switched over, and I don't remember if he was using a Gree or something else.
Oh, was it Jared?
No, it wasn't Jared.
No.
I think it was I'm absolutely blanking on his name, and he runs the Tree Buzz. Anyhow. I'm gonna remember his name and I'm gonna feel really stupid. But I remember watching him and thinking at first, like, that really looks like terrible. Like that doesn't look, but he finished in like a really good time. And I think the only reason he didn't do better was his line got caught when he was pulling his line out of the tree, and he ended up timing out because his line was caught. He couldn't get his gear out of the tree. But that was the first time I'd seen anything other than footlocking. And then guys were talking about it online, and I was one of those guys who was like, "Yeah, that sucks. Like that's not gonna ever, whatever. That's never. That sounds dumb. Like,
Yeah,
like I'm fast. I got double rope. Like, you know, my forearms were huge, and like, you know, as huge as my forearms ever get. But I was at the point where like, you know, I was just hand over handing myself up the tree on a double line rope, and you know, I was pretty fast at it, but it was starting to mess up my hands, and that I think that was one of the things that pushed me to try.
It's weird. I think you're either somebody who is willing to, as soon as you hear about SRS climbing, or when it first came about, it's probably different now because it's just all part of the industry. So if you got into the industry now, you'd probably start learning straight away. But
yeah,
I think when it first came about, it was either you just went straight for it and tried everything out, or you're like yourself and you thought, oh well, you know, I can get the job done fine. I'm comfortable on my system. There's no point in trying this whole new system because you know, there's nothing wrong with what I do. And I think there's those two. You're either one person or you're the other. It doesn't seem like there's a middle ground unless somebody you work with was climbing like that, and then they kind of almost like showed you, and so you're exposed to it, and you're like, all right, I'll give it a try. But otherwise, it's either you game to like jump in like head first, or you kind of push it away. Oh, I'm fine. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was definitely doubtful that it was an advantage for anything, and then after trying it, I was like, this is amazing. Why would I ever climb any other way? And then it really took off. I mean, it was really taking off by the time I put my foot in. I think, you know, because Paul was selling the hitchhiker, the rope wrench had been out for a while at least, and I don't think the rope runner was too far behind. I think it came out pretty soon after, because I remember drooling over the video when Kevin first put out the little teaser video. We were all like, what is that? Like, I have to have that. But then I'm cheap, so I never bought one. I'm so cheap.
Well, it's strange, like with the evolution of like the SRS climbing, it's like some new piece of gear. It doesn't have to be like the actual climbing device, but new piece of gear or new rope or new foot ascender or something new is coming out all the time. So if you bought the latest thing all the time, you'd be bankrupt because you'd just be like spending money all the time. So you kind of got to like pick and choose what you buy, and then it's hearing if there's like a lot of buzz about something that's been out that you didn't buy for a while, and you maybe get to try your friends or something, then and it works. But you can't buy everything as it comes out all the time because there's just so much coming out.
Yeah, and we were, you know, all of us were not rich by any means. You know, if we were buying anything new, we were trying out that cool new rope or you know, foot ascender, stuff like that. Because I mean, once we got the hitchhiker, it really, like, I think all of us were like, why do I need anything else? This thing is awesome, you know, except like the Akimbo, it doesn't work with SAP. So there was always that, but just the whole, like, you could switch from single to double rope, like without changing anything. It's like easy on the rope, easy off the rope. You're not buying, you know, tied, or you're buying bulk Prusik for it. And, you know, so we spent a lot of time like messing with knots on it. Like, it's kind of got that tinker factor for, like, if you like messing with your gear, you can try different prusset cords, you can try different knots, you can try adding rings in the knot, and putting pulleys underneath it and all this other stuff. And I think as far as like inventions, like I said, we were always playing with stuff, but we were never thinking that we're gonna invent something.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a commercial product or anything. Like even when I was building the saddle that I built, I spent a lot of time on it, and I even had somebody like sew it, um, paid somebody to sew it, and but just the thought of like trying to manufacture something like that and compete with the Tree Motion and the liability and all that stuff was really kind of daunting.
Daunting, yeah. What made you decide to even make your own harness? Like, was it something about a specific thing that you wanted from a harness that you couldn't get that you decided to make your own, or you just wanted to tinker and make something?
It was partly, yeah. I think I'm the kind of guy that like everything I have, I look at it and I think, how could it be better? Like, what could I mean, it's kind of egotistical, I guess. Like everything I got, I'm like, oh, can I make it better? Like, I think I could make it better. And so, and then on top of that, like I said, I'm cheap. So I wasn't going to buy a Tree Motion, but I could see how comfortable the Tree Motion looked. And so I, kind of modeled the saddle that I made after the Tree Motion, the shape of the leg straps, like how fat, like how wide they were. Cause like I said, I was climbing on I was just climbing on a Weaver leg strap saddle, and it was miserable. And I think I did buy a used butterfly harness, and that was great, but it didn't quite fit just right, and there wasn't any adjustment in the like from the waist to the D rings or the leg rings. And I'm a really tall, skinny guy with long legs, so my center of gravity is really high. So when I wear my harness, I want those leg Ds to be tight to my legs. And a lot of saddles come with little bridges, like little risers in between the leg and the D, and I hate those. And so I'd always cut them off or run the leg through so it didn't have those. And so that was really, having that saddle, trying to get it adjusted the way I wanted it, and then it just at a certain point I'm like, I might as well just build a whole new saddle because this saddle's not going to do it. Like there are things about it now that I see that are not changeable, like the way the padding is on the legs and stuff like that. And then it went from there, and it turned out, it was a really comfortable saddle, and I climbed on it for like a year. I think at a certain point, my boss was like, "Are you climbing on a homemade saddle? I'm not sure you should be doing that. I'm not sure we can have you doing that." I'm like, yeah, I think
What,
you're probably right.
you were using it out at work, were you?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, every day. I was climbing on that, and then the the whole jumping off point into the akimbo adventure, I think started with Gordon Svedberg and all of his crazy inventions. Like he started posting all his like stuff on the Treehouse and on YouTube, and he had this thing. It was before the Bulldog Bone. He had this thing he called the OAR, the OAR. It was like a on broke offset rack or something like that. It had three parallel arms, and an attachment point at the bottom and a tending point at the top. And it was made with chain links, like ANSI chain links. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And he let me borrow it. Like he was sending it around. There were a bunch of things that would go around the Treehouse, and they had like a saddle, and you could try it out. The Protoss helmet. They're like just sending it to members to just try it out. And so he had this thing, and he sent it to me, and I climbed on it, and just looking at how simply made it was and how he had put it together, it kind of clicked, and I was like, oh, I could do that. Like he doesn't have any crazy fancy tools. Like this is really simple. Like And then I emailed him. I was like, hey, can I play with your design? Like, can I, like, there's some things that I want to like try out. Can I modify your design? He's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And so I started playing with his design with the 3-arm chain link thing, and I ended up with this crazy contraption that, it has like all the curves and lines that the Akimbo has, and it had this cam at the bottom, which was the exact same cam that's on the bottom of the Akimbo now, that attachment cam. I had a machinist friend of mine make me some of these cams, and I put them on there and I was playing with it and it didn't work out, and I changed the design and I took them off and kept playing with that. And at a certain point, I was posting like progress pictures on Treebuzz and or on Treehouse, and at a certain point, Gordon was like, "Hey, I don't know where you're going with this, but that's my idea. Don't maybe don't take it any farther," because it was kind of getting to a point where I was like, "Okay, this is getting to a point where it might be the next step is making a dozen of them and sending them out to people or something like that." And so I was like, "Okay, yeah, you're right. I'll put that down." And then I was looking at those cams that I had machined, and they were beautiful, and I like he had done an amazing job on them. I was like, man, I should do something with these. Maybe I can make a lanyard adjuster. And so I put it together, and that was the first Akimbo. It was just a top and a bottom arm and the cam, and it had a roller on the top at the time, and came up with the eccentric bollard for the adjustment to turn it. Although originally it was a bolt, you would loosen the bolt, then you turn it, and then you tighten the bolt up again. And I jumped on it, and I was like, oh, it works better than the other thing I was trying. It works better than this other stupid thing I was doing. Now I really gotten myself into it.
Yeah, now
And
the bug or the seed has just been set even more, and you kind of got to continue at that point.
yeah, because then it's like, oh, okay, now I'm not working on somebody else's idea just for fun. Now I've got something that seems like it works really good, and if I can get it to a point where it works really good, it might actually be something. And once I figured out how to make it open and close, then it was really like, okay, I can. I'm not going to post pictures of this until I have something that I can show, and until I have something that I could protect.
Protects, yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it's just been little changes from so many people making suggestions. Like, I'd still post on the Treehouse, but they have like a sort of a members only part of the site, or they did it at the time anyway. So it's kind of like a safe place to post stuff that you don't want just out on the internet in general. And all of these guys on there would just, I'd show them something, or I'd talk about whatever I was working on that was a problem point, and they'd give me suggestions and be like, oh, why don't you try this or that? And I got to a point where it pretty much looked like the Akimbo looks now. There were quite a few differences, and I was really conscious of the rope runner and the rope wrench and Kevin Bingham's, all the work that he had put into that. And I looked at the top of the Akimbo, and I'm like, that's really basically a rope wrench, like stuck on the top of another thing. And so I called Kevin out of the blue, like he didn't know me or anything, and I just looked up his company and I called him, and I was like, hey, you don't know me, I've got this thing, and I don't know how you might feel about it, but can I send you one? You check it out, you let me know if you think it's like stepping on your toes or anything. And he was really cool, and I sent him one, and he was really nice about it, and he was like, yeah, no, whatever. He talked to his lawyer friend or something or other, and basically decided that it wasn't a problem, and he was really cool about it. He was really like kind of jazzed about it, and he he traded me for a rope runner. So I got my first rope runner by trading Kevin for an akimbo.
Man, that's awesome. Well, one that you even kind of approached him and sent him one because you were worried about stepping on his toes. That's very commendable from your side. And then his response as well. That's amazing because I suppose if you've invented something for a specific purpose, and obviously I suppose it's the evolution of SRS climbing as it is now is thanks to Kevin. And so to approach somebody who basically like created this kind of climbing within our industry and him be like, yeah, carry on and go for it. That's amazing. That's really cool because so many people
really
like the majority of people I imagine wouldn't react like that. So
yeah, no, I was nervous for sure when I first sent it to him. I was like, yeah, if he doesn't, if he doesn't think it's okay, then I'm gonna have to stop, and that's gonna suck. But yeah, I think him and Gordon and like all the inventor type guys seem to be really supportive and really cool. As like everyone I've met so far, Paul Cox was on the Treehouse all the time, and he would be commenting on stuff that I was posting, and Gordon was really nice about, even though he was like, that thing you're working on is kind of like, maybe stop working on that. He was still like really nice about it, and really not like, here's a cease and desist letter kind of thing, but just like, hey, maybe don't take that any farther. I was like, okay, yeah, I can respect that for sure. And then, yeah, with Kevin being so nice about, his end of it, that was really, it felt, the whole project has felt like so many people are just wanting to help and like wanting
well, and maybe even wanting new
forward,
things, new things for the industry and like to help that evolution of it and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So how far, like, if you sent one to Kevin, it must have been pretty close to like the first one, like the first prototype that you kind of like sold to a few people. It must have been pretty nearly there, was it?
It was pretty close. It was really early, and it was like he was the one he told me, because at the time it didn't have a roller on the bottom. It had just a bollard, and the roller was on the top. And so he was adamant that it needed a roller on the bottom. And so that was like a big design change after he suggested that. I was like, okay, well, I don't know how it's going to work like that. I'll try it, and tried it and got it to work. And then who was it? I think Richard Mumford. He was the one who was like, oh, it needs a spring. Like there's got to be a spring on the top. And so then I kind of went back and I had to figure out how do I get a spring in there? Because it didn't have a spring either. And that was just another one of those like really helpful suggestions from somebody.
Yeah.
And quite a few times there have been people who are like, oh, why don't you try this? And I'm like, dude, I already tried that like ages ago, but whatever, I'll try it again. And I was like, oh, does work better. I changed all these other things and I didn't think about that. Yeah. And now when I go back, it does work different.
I was going to say, I suppose like you could try something and then it not really work, and then you change maybe 3 or 4 other things, and with those changes, then the thing that didn't work before now helps and makes it work even better or something.
Yeah, and it's been like, before a Rock Exotica was interested or any of that, it was just like I would go through like it'd be really exciting and then it'd be really frustrating because it's like everything I do, everything I change, changes something else. Like if I change the diameter of that, there's no way to predict what the change is going to be on the rope. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like, okay, if I change this dimension to get it to work better on a wet rope, now it's not grabbing on a dry rope. If I do this to make it this and this and this and this, and it's just like all these little incremental things. Um, yeah, it's just kind of like this crazy seesaw.
So what? So you said it's so funny because I didn't know this until like 2 days ago. You said you put something together and actually the intention was to make a lanyard adjuster.
Yeah.
So it's so funny because I got my akimbo out the other day and I decided to use it on my lanyard. It was the first time I'd done that, and I thought it was brilliant. I was like, this is fantastic. Like,
Yeah.
because because it's mechanical, so like the tendon is so smooth, and um and I find with the lanyard adjuster, like say the ART positioner or whatever it is, because most of the time it's not like you're hanging off the lanyard, so it's more it's kind of the opposite of like your primary SRS device. It's either the main things are you want it to release really easy and you want it to tend really easy, because
Right.
it's not often where your full body weight is on it and you need that right really smooth kind of release. You
Right.
you want to know that you can release it easy, you can tend it easy, and yeah, like when I used it as my lanyard the other day, I was like, this is brilliant. Yeah, and then somebody said to me, "Oh, that was Jamie's, like that was the idea in the first place," which I'd never knew of. So that was really
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And you're not the first one either. I think Doug Tutrup, he's all about it as a lanyard adjuster. He loves it for that.
Yeah,
And we were joking is like the most expensive lanyard adjuster ever.
yeah,
But
yeah,
hey, if it works.
yeah. If it works, it works. Because well, I suppose you well, my feelings on the akimbo, like my view from a personal experience, because we
Right.
kind of chatted a little back and forth from my video,
Yeah.
and I did like because I found that I just couldn't get it to work. I suppose because I'd been on the rope wrench for so long, and obviously you've got a hitch which is so predictable, apart from if it gets pitch or when it gets really worn or whatever. So you've got the hitch that you use, and then you just got the added friction of the wrench.
Right.
And so I was so used to that, and I just I had a really hard time, like getting the. Well, it's funny. I'll tell you. So the first when I first got the akimbo, I got it on. I I signed up for it through your GoFundMe page, and I got the version when Rock Exotica first made like the first batch or something. I can't remember how it worked, but
It was a silver and red one, or it was the blue?
no, it was the blue one as it
Oh,
is
okay. Yeah.
now. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I was so excited. So that first weekend after I got it, I spent like most of the day out there, like and I dialed it in like on the rope that I got, and I was swinging around, and how everybody says like go low and slow. I kind of did
Yeah.
that. I did that for the first, like, I don't know, 20 minutes, and then I was like bombing around as much as I could once I felt like I got the friction settings right, and then I suppose the first time it came to me was like when I used it at work. Used it on the same rope construction, but it was like basically a used like work rope, whereas the one I'd been swinging around on the weekend was like pretty new, but of the same construction, and
Right.
and it just reacted like so differently, um and ever since I found like I've been trying to adjust and change settings and stuff like that, whereas because I was used to the hitch and it just being intuitive and responsive,
Right.
it I got quite frustrated with it, but it's funny because the people that I've spoken to about it, I, and you'll be able to tell me what feedback you get, but I've got about 50-50. Like, loads of people absolutely love it, swear by it. One of the people that I respect the most as an arborist, he's got the silver version, so like the first version that was
Yeah.
ever could have been bought, and he's like one of the best tree climbers that I know. Just the way that he climbs, is the most kind of advanced, and always has these great techniques, great ideas, and he absolutely loves it. And so when somebody like that has such a high opinion of it, I and it obviously just works for some people, or they're so committed to it and they stick with it, and they wear it in. Maybe that's what it is. But I just
Yeah, I think,
couldn't.
I mean, like I was saying earlier, one of the like biggest frustrations making it is that trying to get it to be good all the time was just like, I don't know if it's impossible or
Yeah,
what, like, but I set myself I prioritized certain parts of the function over others, right? So I wanted what I wasn't getting from the hitchhiker or rope wrench or the rope runner was on and off the rope. So that was like a huge priority, just being able to get it on and off the rope easily and quickly. And then adjustable without any tools was the like second tier of like, it's got to do that. And so that kind of like nailed down sort of the, what do you call it? Sort of the blueprint of the design,
yeah.
right?
That kind of
So
set the path for the way that the design had to be to kind of
yeah.
tick those
So
boxes.
if I did more than two friction points, right, then it's not going to open the way that it opens. You're going to have to add some other third factor to get it on and off the rope. And I racked my brain like, how do I get another piece in there? How do I, maybe I could do like the spider jack and have a little wooden handle that pinches the rope, or maybe there's a way to fit another arm in the middle. I don't know. But it also, I think, for me, like using it for so long, I'm so used to it, and I'm the guy that like is always fiddling with this gear in the tree and like tightening my prusik knot. And so it's like, if I use the rope wrench, I'm almost messing around with it just as much, where I'm like, messing around with where the tether is sitting and tightening the knot or loosening the knot, or twisting it around or doing this or doing that. So it didn't feel that much different for me on it. And then the other, I think, you did hit on it wearing in, and that is a big factor. I've noticed that a lot of the guys that weren't so keen on it right off the bat, like after using it for a while and really getting it worn in, like have come around. And then there's always going to be people who just it just doesn't fit the style that you climb with, or you don't want to have to adjust it between ropes, or weather and stuff like that. I mean, I'd love to get the design to the point where you don't have to adjust it when your rope gets wet or gets dry, or I mean, there will always be a little bit of something there.
So is it, going back to the point of like people saying that once they'd found that it was worn in, it works so much better than when it's kind of like first out of the box. Is there? Yeah. Have you even kind of thought if there's a way to almost make it or give it that worn in feel?
Well, we tried that.
Tinkering.
So the silver and red ones that I sent out for the GoFundMe first like batch or whatever, that was I built those, or I had the parts made and I put them all together, and those were fully anodized. Everything was anodized, the cams, the sides, everything. And that was another one of those like, I'm like, yeah, the design's great. I got it to the point where I love it. And then I'd never anodized one before. So we anodized it, and you throw it on a rope and you're like, this is way different.
Oh,
The anodizing makes a huge difference. Like, it made it so grabby. And, you know, I don't, if you go back and look at some of the conversations of guys who were getting those first ones, they're like, man, this thing sucks in the rain. Like, it doesn't work. Like, it's garbage. And it was, part of it was the anodizing, and it was like grabbing and locking it down on a rope when it was wet, because it, and then once you wore the anodizing off, it smoothed out. And so when Rock Exotica took the design, we talked about that, and we decided that we weren't going to anodize the cams. So the cams on the Rock Exotica akimbo aren't anodized; they're polished. They're like tumbled, burnished is what it's called. So they're tumbled to give them a nice like smooth finish, but it still has, if you look closely, there's like little tiny machining marks in there. And it's amazing how that tiny little bit of like ridging from the machine marks makes a huge difference. And so once you wear that down, that's when it smooths out. And I think it also changes a little bit. You know, if you look at the bottom cam, it's like a straight, you know, fluted cove cut. And once it wears in, it's kind of a little bit of a cup. So it kind of cups the rope a little bit. Same with the top, that nose of that top cam, it kind of wears in so that it's really like hugging the profile of the rope almost perfectly, because it's the rope that's wearing that shape into it. And so other than like, I don't know, taking an old one and like 3D scanning it and then trying to mill it to that same shape, I don't know how you'd get it that smooth. And I remember when I first climbed on the rope runner, it was the same thing. It was, you have to climb on it like for a couple weeks before it really starts to smooth out. And I remember first jumping on it, I was like, man, this thing sucks. It hurts my hand, and it's hard to release. And then a couple weeks in, I was like, oh yeah, this is nice. Like, this is really nice. Like, I like this. And it was the same thing, you know, there's the anodizing on it, and you had to wear the anodizing off before it really starts to smooth out. But it's still, I mean, I can't stop playing with the design.
so you
So I'm
still
still,
you're still designing at the moment, and are you looking at making like a second version like in the future and like changing things or?
I think with anything, there has to be a second version at some point, because there are so many things that you really you can't foresee until you put it in the hands of 1,000 people. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And have them use it, and have them, like, I'm still looking at, you know, anytime one of the older ones gets worn out and I get it back, I'm always looking at it like, okay, what did it, you know, where did it wear out? What parts lasted? What parts didn't? How did it do? And so, yeah, I'm always playing with changing dimensions here and trying to get it to work better in this way or that way. And I don't know what will come of all that, but at some point, I think if I come up with changes that are good,
yeah.
they would make it into the design. You know, I think
And
they'd have to.
so if is it so like so it has the two friction bollards, and obviously because it like almost like scissors or concertinas open, you're
Mhm.
saying for it to do that it couldn't have a third friction point. That's like the limiting factor because of the way that it opens up.
Yeah, pretty much. Right.
And
Yeah, I
so
haven't been able to figure out how to get one in there.
yeah, is there and the same because so it seems like it's primarily designed for use SRS, but it can be used MRS. Is there a way to make like an additional attachment point so that it can if you're using it MRS, it can come back and attach to itself, or can that not be done because of how it would kind of pull the cam or pull it open or whatever?
Yeah, there's not a way to make an attachment point like on the top of the akimbo to do that, because you would be hanging off that bottom cam, and that would just be cranking down on the rope.
Yeah.
You'd be basically forcing it shut.
Could you like just extend that where that first hole is and just put a second hole where the first hole is, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I played with that. I actually have a little like bolt-on attachment that I tried it out on, and it works. It can work. I just have the 3-hole swivel on my saddle, and I just bring it back and clip it to the third hole. And when I climb, I probably climb like 50-50 MRS and SRS, because in our area we have a real mix of tree types. We've got the coast live oaks, which are big spreading oak trees with real wide canopies and not much of a central leader most of the time. And then we've got redwoods and firs and all these big straight central leader type trees. And so a lot of the times I'll either double rope it up and then tie it off and single rope the work, or I'll throw a line and I'll single rope up and do some work and then switch to double rope to come out of the tree, so I don't have to pull out a friction saver or whatever. I can just pull my rope straight out. And so whenever I do that, I just clip it right back to that swivel. And for me, I really like that. I like having the attachment and the device separate, because I kind of tend it almost like a Blake's hitch, where I pull the device down and then I manually lift the rope up to kind of let out slack. And I'll kind of do that, going out on a limb walk or something. Like I finally got a zigzag to try out, and it's super smooth and amazing, but I hate not being able to pull it down and let it up by hand and pull it down and let it up, because it's attached to the top of the attachment's on top of the zigzag, and you have to just rely on your weight pulling the rope through the device and whatever you've got your rope running through. And for me, most of the time that's just a natural crotch. If I'm doing a moving rope, I'm running around the tree from one tie-in to another, and I'm not going to be setting a pulley or a friction saver, because that's not my primary tie-in. I'm getting to my primary tie-in.
Right.
So I have played with also like a spliced, like a horseshoe kind of shape that you would be able to clip into the top of the horseshoe, and that would be above the akimbo, and that would tend it. Another thing that I've done is put a little loop of throw line around the attachment point at the bottom. Well, that for tending that works, but if you had well, you wouldn't be able to fit a whole. Yeah. Anyway, never mind. Scratch that.
Yeah.
But you can tend it from that bottom one too. Yeah. And I thought about making that hole bigger so you could fit the regular carabiner plus a micro carabiner to tend it from that bottom point.
Yeah.
Because that's been another point of contention with people, is that clip, the spring clip for the tending point. Some people really hate that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It must.
Well, and I think one of the big things that the akimbo ran into, one, it got insanely overhyped. Like, it kind of like turned into a crazy freight train and got way ahead of itself.
it was pretty insane. How I think it was that mentality of like, you want what you can't have, and because everybody knew about it and it looked so cool, and it was like the next SRS device, but then it seemed to be so long from the point that people knew about it to when they could actually get their hands on one. It just was like made everybody want one, and it kind of picked up steam and
Yeah,
went
it got
crazy,
out of hand.
which is brilliant for you and Rock Exotica and
Right. I know. I mean, if I wish I had done it on purpose, but if I had done it on purpose, I wouldn't have done it until maybe like 3 years into it, you know? So maybe
yeah,
it was like 1 year of hype rather than whatever it was, like five,
yeah.
something crazy.
How
But
did? Yeah, go on. Sorry.
yeah, so that was like, I kind of forgot. I lost the train of thought. But yeah, the hype was one of the big things. And then it's such a different, um, just using it is different from the other devices that are out there. And like, I think I told you, I think we were talking at TCAA, and I was saying how, really, like when I was designing it, I'm not, I go to, I never went to TCAA before it hit the market. I went to a few competitions and stuff, but I'm not like super connected, and I just get what I get from the treehouse and stuff like that. So it was really designed for me and the
Yeah,
way I climb.
yeah. I remember. Yeah, I
I
remember
want it.
you
Like
saying
I'd
that.
go climb on it, and I don't like this thing about it, and I'll change it the way I like it. And then I didn't really think about that too much until I started sending them out there, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, I hate that it does this," and I'm like, "Really? I did that on purpose. Like I like that it does. I wanted to do that. Like, but there are other climbing styles out there, and other people do differently than I do, and so that clip is one of those things where for me when I'm going up a rope on on an ascent system, I'm holding myself upright and using my arms to hold myself upright. I've never been the kind of guy that leans back into their device, but I learned there are a
There
lot
are
of people
people.
who do. And so for the people who really do that and rely on that for their positioning while they're ascending, it sucks. And so like, a lot of I don't know, effort has gone into sort of re-educating positioning for people. It's like people ask like, well, how do I make it not clip out? It's like, well, lengthen your tether and sit up a little straighter, you know,
Yeah,
it'll work.
yeah. It must be so hard. Like going from designing something, well, taking it, all the way where you've taken it from and to, but yeah, it was designed for you and how you climb, so it kind of checks all the boxes for you. Whereas
Right.
it's only until you release it out and thousands of people get their hands on it, you realize what the kind of the mass feeling or the mass market is, and for someone like yourself who's obviously very much into tweaking things and tinkering with things and even like hitches and trying different things, and like you were saying in the tree you change things to try and get it to perform better and add like little rings and stuff,
Mm.
and that's why you've even invented something like this, whereas 99.999% of arborists will never do that, and but then because that's the way you are, it's hard to see it from like somebody at the other end of the scale, isn't it? Really, and it's
Yeah.
and then when it goes on sale, you then start hearing all the feedback, and then from somebody who was a tree guy to then has created this product. It must have been so unexpected because you didn't know what to expect and how to, I suppose, how to even deal with feedback, and because
Oh yeah.
as soon as there's anything that's like negative, I'm sure you take it quite personally, or would have done at first and been like, oh God, like yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it has been really crazy that it did take off the way it did, and unexpected for sure. Like I still like look at it and like, did that really happen? That actually happened? And yeah, the feedback thing is for me, as long as it's constructive feedback, I love it. Like if you hated it, tell me why you hated it. And I'll take that on board. and see, is it something that I could fix? Is it something that I would even want to fix? Because at the end of the day, I am going to make something that I like, right? Like I don't think if you set out to build the perfect device that everybody's going to love, that you would ever get there, you know. And I knew that going in. As soon as I knew that it was going to be, as soon as Rock Exotica showed interest in it, it's like, okay, we're going to take it. It's going to be made. It's going to be sold. There's no way that 100% of people are going to like it. There's always going to be people who hate it. You look at anything else on the market, the zigzag, the rope runner, the rope wrench, somebody hates it, no matter what it is. And that's the great thing about like tree care right now, I think, is that there are so many options. And there's so many, like, if you didn't like that, well, try the other one, see if that fits your style better. And you're going to find something, you know, and it doesn't have to be. So yeah, it doesn't, I don't take it personally when somebody doesn't like the akimbo. There was a while there where there was some there was a bunch of, like, it was taking me forever to get the GoFundMe stuff going, and I didn't have Facebook or anything like social media. All I had was like the tree buzz. And my wife would check Facebook and was like, have you seen what some of these people are saying on Facebook? Like, they're really mean. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna look at it. I don't care. But at a certain point I had to just like get on and sort of explain myself. And because it was mostly, I think it came down to frustration with how long it was taking to get stuff out. And so I never did go back and read any of that stuff. I got a Facebook account, and I got on there and I just kind of explained, like, look, it's just me in my garage. Like, I'm trying to make this thing worthwhile. It went from just this little thing I'm building in my garage to this thing where, like, 300 people are like frothing at the mouth to get it. And now I'm scared of sending out like a half finished prototype.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of not your fault that it picked up steam the way it did. So, but then,
no.
yeah, everybody's like, just want to get their hands on it, but they don't realize it's not kind of finished and ready yet.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that I could have done differently for sure. Like, I don't think it would have hurt if I had sent out less finished prototypes. It might have been better as in the long run, just more feedback sooner. But I'd never done this kind of thing before and never even entertained the thought of doing something like that before. So there's definitely a big steep learning curve on how to handle all that and how long things really take,
how
at every step of the way.
How did you get involved with Rock Exotica? Like, what was the process, and when did they show interest to actually want to take on board and help make the product?
Once I like I was saying, I built the first prototypes. I realized I had something that was like worth protecting, and I went to a patent office and I found a patent lawyer who, he was setting up this like program for like people to write their own patents, and so he kind of took me on as a guinea pig for his program and helped me write the patent. So I wrote a patent for it, and once I did that, I made a little video and I put it up on YouTube and I posted it on the Tree Buzz and the Treehouse. And as soon as I did that, I think it kind of really took off from there. I started the GoFundMe shortly after that, and it went absolutely bonkers, and I got terrified and I shut it off. And then Rock Exotica called me, I think shortly after that. There were a couple other companies that called me, but Rock Exotica was definitely like, I loved loved the aesthetic of the Unisender and all of Rock Exotica's like their blocks and everything that they made. Like I really love the way their stuff looks, although I was too cheap to ever buy any of it. um, and so when they called me, I was like, okay, yep, that's the dream right there. It was like my fantasy was that like DMM or Rock Exotica would call me, and Rock Exotica did. So they flew me out to Utah, and I brought them some of the prototypes and showed them how it worked, and we went back and forth on like all of the details and stuff of the contract, and then they they licensed it and started working on it. Um, and that took a little while. I think we went back and forth quite a bit because they were, I mean, they're obviously like really solid people and really trustworthy. But at that point, I was like, you know what? I have no idea what I'm doing. So I know that you guys are trustworthy. I know that you're honest, but I'm still going to call a lawyer and like check out, like have them help me write a contract. And so that took a while. Like we went back and forth with that like for a couple months. Um, and then once they took it on, once we finally signed the contract, they were in the middle. They actually told me, they're like, look, we want to do the akimbo, but we should tell you that we've also contracted to do the rope runner too. And so, you know, we're doing that for tree stuff. It's not like our product, but we are building it. And I was like, that's great. I want to see it. Like, when can I get one? And then so that was first on the list, right? So that had priority. They were working on that before they signed the contract with the akimbo. So they were working on that before they would start working on the akimbo. So that was like, I don't remember how long it took for all that to do what it did. And then they finally, once they got to starting working on the akimbo, then it was just that whole education of like, everything takes a lot longer than you think.
So did
You know?
did like, were you very certain on that you didn't want too much change to like your prototype version, or were you quite open to their suggestions, or did they try and change things that you were like, no, definitely not, or how
I was
did that
kind of
work?
expecting them to kind of take it and change a lot, but they really didn't. I was a little bit, I was like surprised when they were like, yep, this looks great. We're going to go with it. And I was like, really? You're not going to like, aren't you going to change it? Like make it better? Like, aren't you going to like, don't you have engineers to like make it awesome? They're like, no, this is like, you've got like a bunch of these in people's hands. Like the less we change, the better. Cause we know it works the way it is. You know, there are certain things that they that they were adamant had to be different. Like, you know, replaceable parts was one where it's like, you know, the goal is to get it CE certified. It's not going to get CE certified if you've got replaceable parts. Plus, there's that liability, and so replaceable parts is something that is really not that negotiable. So it's like, all right, you know, if we can make it and make it so it lasts a reasonable amount of time in people's hands, and you know, if there's a rebuild program and stuff like that, then that's fine. Other than that, there really wasn't anything that they're like, yeah, we got to change this, that I didn't agree with. You know, the just a bunch of little details. You know, I knew that they were gonna probably rivet the parts together early on, and you know, Rock Thompson, he's kind of funny. He was like, just use bolts. It's fine. We'll just do it the way it is. And then the other guys at Rogers are going like, no, we have to use, it's got to be rivets. We can't send it out with bolts on it. people are going to take it apart. Like, you kidding? But yeah, so it was really, I mean, it was really nice working with them on it, in that sense that they didn't really want to like change anything that didn't need to be changed, for external reasons. They
Did
weren't
it,
they
did it
weren't keen on redesigning the whole thing.
how much did it affect you, like your day-to-day job? Did you did you have to go and visit them at the factory quite often, or like
No,
how does your employer see what you've done, and like were they like really supportive and just being like, yeah, do what you got to do?
well, so they, by the time it got to, they flew me out to the factory the one time, and other than that, I haven't been out there since. They have been flying me out to TCIA every year, and I've been going to, the Cheryl Tree Arborfest West, um, the Arbor Expo, all those kind of things. And the right about the time that they started really getting into the akimbo, um, was the same time that the little company that I was working for got bought by Davy Tree. And so they were pretty excited, I guess, to that I was like, they've got the inventor of the akimbo as one of their employees. And luckily, you know, when they bought the company, I had at that point been working for the company for 9 years, I think. And so my vacation pay, or my vacation calculation, was grandfathered all the way to that for that 9 years. So I get a decent amount of vacation. So most of the time when I go to TCIA, I just take personal vacation days to do that. Um, and they're super supportive. They're like, they're trying to approve it for use at Davy, and they're waiting for the CE mark to do that. But the whole time they've been like, yeah, this is great. We're gonna get it approved at Davy, and it's gonna happen, and it's gonna be awesome. And so yeah, they were excited. And then my manager, he's been really supportive. Like, he's a really really uh, he jokes about how famous I am and this and that. It's like every time we go to like the Arbor Fest, he's like, yeah, we're gonna take bets on how many people come up and know who you are or whatever. Which is kind of hilarious. But no, yeah, they've been really good. And it hasn't really affected my day to day for the most part. Like, I go to work every day and climb, and for a while, when it wasn't approved for use at Davy, so I wasn't allowed to use it at Davy. So I was like working on it but
going
not
un-
using it.
yeah, going under the radar.
Yeah, and then so now, right now, it's not CE marked yet, and it's not approved at Davy yet, but I have been given permission to test it for Davy. So I get to climb on it at work every day, which is nice. Um, they're
But then nobody else you work with is allowed to climb on
right.
it.
Yeah, which is frustrating for them.
Yeah, I bet it is.
Oh, but yeah, it's just kind of like it's still kind of my hobby, I guess. Like, at night, I go to my shop, I play with it, play with other stuff, tinker around. In the daytime, I go climb trees, and
So what
I don't want to give up climbing trees for sure.
so you mentioned the CE mark a couple of times.
Uh huh.
How how far along in the process are you with that, or is that kind of an unknown time frame?
It is like on the cusp, I guess you'd say. they're they're just, it's another one of those like everything takes longer than you think. And I don't think the COVID-19 thing has helped any at all. But yeah, they're just waiting for the stamp, as far as I understand it, and then doing all the translations necessary for the manual. But it's actually really close.
So it's gone through all the testing that's required and
It's
that kind of
passed
stuff.
all the testing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's
So
just
it's
it's
passed.
just basically waiting for like paperwork kind of thing
Yep.
on their end, really. That's
Yeah,
pretty good.
exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. Because I'm sure there's going to be that second wave of, um, of the steam train of the
Yeah.
akimbo in Europe. People
Right.
itching to get their hands on it.
Hopefully less so. I think, a cooler heads prevail this time. Uh, and also, I think last time it was like the crazy backlog plus, Rock Exotica. There's also like a learning curve on like manufacturing it and like getting all the parts to come out right every time, and then teaching the guys on the factory floor who are doing all the assembly, because it's not a simple thing to put together. So they, at the very beginning, it's like, oh, we can only put together this many every week, and the backlog is like 1,500 units or something crazy.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, they can crank out, 100 a week or whatever it is, and the backlog is not going to be nearly as much. So it's going to be hopefully a lot less chaos and people waiting months to get theirs.
How 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 big of a part of Rock Exotica's business is the ARB industry, and how much has the akimbo kind of aff- affected their business in like a positive way? Like, has it made the ARB industry a larger portion of the business, or have they actually realized they want to focus on making things more because of the akimbo, or like?
Yeah, I don't know too much about it. I know that, I mean, it's a pretty big uh, product, as far as like the volume that they're making. I know that a lot of their stuff is rescue oriented, and they're a manufacturer, so they make stuff for other people too. Um, so I don't know what portion of their business is ARB and what portion is other stuff, but I know that they're, with the akimbo. I think one of the reasons that they were interested in it is that it is a big, like splashy arborist specific tool, and it kind of like shines a light on their other arborist stuff to kind of really like, hey guys, we do arborist stuff. Like, look,
Yeah,
we're not just like accidentally making arborist stuff.
yeah. It's definitely almost become like a flagship product for them in the ARB industry. Yeah, as like
Right.
to highlight the fact that they make a whole load of other gear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is crazy because they've been making the Unisender for like 10 years, which is like an amazing tool. And it was, going the very first TCI I went to, that they took me to, I got to meet Morgan, who makes the Unisender, and he's a really cool, really another like super friendly, like super encouraging, like the nicest guy I ever met. But like we just kind of like sat down and talked about like, oh, the Unicenter and the Akimbo, and like, oh yeah, you had that problem, I had that problem, and yeah, check this out, and oh, look at this thing that I'm working on, and just like it's great. And I it's funny because I guess while the Akimbo was like in waiting, people were going to the Rock Exotica website to look up the Akimbo, and they have metrics that track what people do on their website and stuff. And so like a ton of people were going to the website, looking up the Akimbo, seeing that it wasn't available yet, and buying the Unisender. And so like the Unisender numbers went up because the
wow.
Akimbo was like making all this publicity, but it wasn't out yet. So everybody's like, I want something, and like, oh, the Unicenter. And it still boggles my mind how many people at like TCA, the trade show, are like, oh, what's this thing? It's like, it's the Unicenter. Have you not seen that? It's been out forever. Like, I don't know how you don't know about that. But yeah, it's, and they're working on the Unicenter 2, and Morgan's got like a lanyard adjuster that he's been working on, and so they're definitely like, they've got more ARB stuff in the pipeline, and it's just like, it's kind of like a tinker's dream come true, meeting like all these guys. It's been amazing. Like, I've been really, really lucky, I think, just with the whole thing.
So you said you mentioned you still go out into your garage or your shed and tinker a little bit. Do you like have a bunch of pretty sophisticated machinery, or like
No.
what's your tinkering look like?
Well, so I mean, I basically have a wood shop because, like I said, I did woodworking for years. So I've got a table saw and a bandsaw and router and the basic woodworking tools, and that's what I did. All of the early Akimbos were done with a router and a bandsaw and a belt sander, and the parts that I couldn't make, like the stainless steel parts and stuff, I would get my machinist friend to make for me. And so now, one of the things that I did splurge and buy with some of the money I've made is a real mill. So I've got a little like benchtop mill. My brother gave me an old metal lathe that needs some work, but I have it now. But yeah, mostly it's just a wood shop, really. And I've got a little 3D printer, just a plastic filament type 3D printer, which is awesome for like, oh, maybe I'll change this, and then like you just print the part and you see if it all fits together, and then you go put it all together. And then I discovered these shops that have water jet cutting tools. And so if you draw a shape on the computer, as long as it's a flat shape, you send them the file and they can cut it out with this water jet, and it's like amazing. And so, if I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I've made some design changes, I want to try it out, I'll have the parts water jet, and then I'll take it to my shop and I'll use the router to finish all the edges and drill out some holes and stuff like that. But it's all pretty basic stuff when you get down to it. And one of the really, like that first holding that thing that Gordon had made was like, you can cut aluminum with a table saw. You can cut aluminum with a router. You can work aluminum with a woodworking tool because it's so soft. And that was just like, I don't need a machine shop. Like, I can do this at home. I can use a belt sander. This is amazing. So yeah,
it's so strange though, because like, so for someone like me, I mean, I mess about with doing woodwork and tinkering with things, but thinking about the fact that you created a device like the Akimbo, I would like, I suppose at the beginning you never see what like an end product is going to be. You just start messing about, and it's just that series of events and time where you're just messing,
right?
And then you end up with this thing like a few years later, which I suppose, but I just can't ever imagine doing that. And I suppose like for you the way you're talking about it, like as if like how easy it is, and you just shape a few bits of aluminium together, or you just make things out of wood. I'm like to me that's like, and I'm sure to most other people that's amazing, but to you it sounds like that's just normal for you.
Yeah, I mean it is. Yeah, but you look at like, you look at your computer, like somebody didn't just like come up with the whole computer all at once. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a progression of little steps and building on top and building on top. And so the Kimbo's the same way. It's I didn't come up with the thing like right off, like bam, there it is. It's just these little steps, and everything builds even before that. It's, if you're, yeah, not everybody tinkers in a wood shop or has experience with tools and building stuff, but every little step gets some, you learn something new, and then you learn how to apply that in a different situation. And it's one of the same reasons where that I like tree work, is that every day, you see the homeowners like, that's amazing, I don't know how you did that, how did you get that tree down so amazingly? It's like, well, I've practiced, I've done little pieces and then bigger pieces and then really big pieces, and I'm comfortable with it, and now it's kind of second nature. So yeah, I don't know if that is a good analogy, but
Yeah, no, that
I think,
that's actually a really good analogy because yeah, we like as arborists we can't remove a tree safely, efficiently, and everything straight off the bat. It's like years of learning tiny little techniques and what works, what doesn't work, and that kind of stuff. So I suppose that is a good analogy because it's
yeah.
the same thing really. Do you ever see yourself? Do you see your career changing in a way of like more like product development, or do you still always see yourself as an arborist and that's just more of like a side thing that you're gonna carry on doing?
Yeah, I think I'm a cautious optimist. The Akimbo, it took off. I'm not going to quit my day job. One, because I think that would be stupid. You don't know, maybe it's popular now, maybe it's not going to be popular in a year. Two, I love tree climbing. Like that's my passion, and that keeps me going every day, I think. I don't think I could spend all day in a shop, but on the other hand, at the same time, I love getting into the shop and making stuff. So I think I'm always going to do a little bit of both, I hope. Because I mean, I've got other ideas, and if it's possible to do that, I don't think I want to rely on it for my sole income, because then I don't think it's as fun anymore,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
And on the other, and also doing tree work is the inspiration for making stuff. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because it's like, I like the part of it where you're solving problems and you're out there figuring out how to get this tree down or prune this tree or get out on that branch. And then the additional part for me is like, oh, could I make something that's going to help me? Is that, that's a fun idea. And so I think I would love to be able to do both for as long as I can. I mean, I'm 42, so I'm still out there climbing every day right now. I'm pretty sure I sprained my finger flicking a booger the other day, so I might be getting old. But
Yeah, I totally understand what you mean about if you stopped being out there climbing every day of the week, or every week at least, then those problems that you're solving and creating products, the problems aren't there anymore because you're not doing
yeah,
the tree work. So then I don't know, it's kind of like I kind of see it a bit like if you went into product development, that was your full-time job. It's almost like a musician that's released like an album that they made that was like their first album, so it was all because they loved making music and it was a passion, and then a record label comes along and gives them all this money to go and make like 3 other albums, but there's like time limits, and so they're just like churning them out like a factory, and and a lot of the time they're never as good because there's no love and passion behind what they're making anymore. So yeah. So I imagine it could be a similar thing. Like if you were just in a workshop the whole time, racking your brain of like, oh God, I've got to make a product that, and to solve a problem that I don't even know exists because I'm not out there doing it anymore.
Yeah, and also, if there's a problem, somebody hires you to solve a problem or something, and you're not out there testing it, you don't know if it works or not. You have to take somebody's word for it, or that's the fun part, is applying it and seeing if it works, and seeing, does it make your day better? Yes, that's awesome. No, back to the drawing board. Play with it a little bit more. And yeah, I really want to, like Morgan and I have been playing with an idea, and to me that has been really fun, because here's somebody who's just as passionate about like making stuff, and you get to bounce ideas off of each other. And yeah, that would be not as fun if it was like your career, your job, 100%. Just like some days tree work gets, you're going every day, it becomes a slog.
Yeah, a bit monotonous sometimes.
If you don't have something keeping you fresh or keeping you interested, and for a long time it was those coworkers where it's like I'd love coming to work just to hang out with the other guys, and then it's fun to come to work as a problem solving, or it's some days you just need to get outdoors, but it's got to be something.
Yeah, I really find that there's got to be something that gives you that boost and something different. Otherwise, it is just going to be a job at the end of the day. So, yeah, whether it's like the guys that you're working with and you look forward to going and having, some good banter, and or if, it's just a challenge. Yeah, problem solving and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So,
exactly.
Right. Well, I really appreciate your time, Jamie, and I'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening. Anyway,
no problem. Thanks.
Yeah, it's
fun.
Yeah, it was always. Yeah, it interests me. I mean, I spoke to Kevin about him developing his product, and it just it really interests me, like hearing how you even kind of got on that track in the first place. So
right.
Yeah, I appreciate you kind of giving a deep dive into how you did it and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I look forward to any things that you might come out in the future, or any little changes, and look forward to it. And well, aside from mine being on my lanyard, which I think it is going to stay as my lanyard just now, because I seem to like it so much, but I might try and wear it and bed it in a bit more and give it a second go.
Give it a little go. Yeah. Just keep it away from sap.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, Jamie.
Cheers.
See ya. Bye. This podcast was sponsored by ChipDrop. Thanks very much to ChipDrop, and that's getchipdrop.com. An awesome service where you can basically get rid of wood chip for a very, very small fee, or sometimes for free, depending on where you live and depending if the person that takes your chip wants to pay for you. So saves you so much time, and time is money. So getchipdrop.com, really simple website to use. It plots out the sites on the map, and so you can see if there's one a dump site close by, or a drop site, should I say. This podcast was also sponsored by Jobber. That's Jobber Business Management Software. I use Jobber for my own business, and it is an absolute game changer. So go to climbingarborist.com, click on the Jobber banner at the top of the website, and you'll get a 14-day free trial and 6 months with 20% off the subscription fee. So go to climbingarborist.com, click on the Jobber banner, and you'll get a 14-day free trial with 20% off your first 6-month subscription. Thanks very much to Jobber for supporting the Climbing Arborist podcast, and I really hope you enjoyed this episode and the conversation with Jamie Merritt. What an awesome guy Jamie is, and what a very enthusiastic and intelligent guy to have gone and designed and developed the Akimbo. So thanks very much for him giving up his time. Really appreciate it, and I hope everybody listening enjoyed the podcast. Thanks very much, and I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.